Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, Facebook family. This is Annette Lartigue. I am your coach here at COACHINGU4U. I am honored to be here with you tonight and grateful for those of you who took the time to join in. So, tonight our topic is about our inner child, but before we move forward, I'd like to thank Reverend uh, Ethan for bringing the community together tonight for a conversation about how to best deal with some of the things that are confronting us. And the only thing I have to add to that, and that I will continue to add to it, is as a community, we have to stop harboring guns, drugs, and criminals. Every parent deserves to see their child grow up healthy, wealthy, and wise, and not be the victims of gun violence. God bless every parent who is suffering tonight. I pray for your peace, and I pray that you will have enough of everything you will need to get through this difficult time. I cannot imagine, and I do care. As a parent, it is difficult for me not to care. As a parent, it's difficult for me not to have feelings and want what's best for yours. If I want what's best for mine, I have to want what's best for yours as a parent. So for every parent out there right now going through something, I'm praying for you, and I'm asking God to give us everything we need. Good night. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Tonight our topic is about our inner child. And most of us would say, I don't have one. Everybody has an inner child. Everybody. How you see that child and how that child presents with you is different for everybody. And the roadmap to discovering that child can be different for everybody, but there are some things that are very basic in it. And because this is such a huge topic, we're going to break it off in pieces and start tonight and then pick it up for the next 2 episodes. Again, thank you for joining us here this evening. And so, who is your inner child? Your inner child is that unconscious part of you that is directly connected to everything you experienced in childhood, everything I experienced. Now, listen, I want to remind you again that I am sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I don't know everything. I can talk about an inner child because I remember when I discovered mine and what those unconscious thoughts and feelings were all about. There are times when knowing that your inner child is suffering is a big part of it too. So we're going to talk about a few things tonight. We're not going to keep you long. Your inner child is one of the most important parts of your mental and emotional growth and, if necessary, healing. I'm not always happy. I'm not always sad. I experience heartache. I experience pain. I'm a human being. One of the things that has helped me learn to deal better with who I am and to face the woman in the mirror is that I dealt with my inner child. My inner child can be a little unruly sometimes, but I had to deal with it. And I'll continue to deal with it for the rest of my life, as will you if you get in touch with it. So your inner child is simply your unconscious thoughts and feelings. Your unconscious thoughts and feelings. There's not one person out here in the world that can comfort my inner child. Nobody but me. Nobody but me can help me deal with my inner child. Nobody can force you to do it. Nobody can love you through your inner child. Your inner child are your unconscious thoughts and feelings about everything you experienced in your childhood. And for some, it was trauma. For some. There are some that won't let that inner child live comfortably or comforted because some of that childhood trauma is too painful. But tonight, I'm going to start sharing some tips with you about how to comfort your inner child. And I want you to know this: you won't have a perfect enough partner, you won't have a big enough bank account, you won't have a big enough house, you won't have a big enough job, you won't have enough jewelry, clothes, cars that can comfort that inner child. It's work to heal that child and deal with that child, no matter how large or small the trauma. And it depends on how we look at trauma. Some of us see it in different ways, and some of us see some of the heartache and pain that we suffered in childhood as not being trauma, but as being just a part of growing up. And it is, but that inner child is still in there and dealing with that. And if you don't comfort them, you'll deal with it. It'll come out. It'll come out through depression. It'll come out through mental health issues. It'll come out with your combativeness. It'll come out with your inability to deal with other people effectively. It'll come out with your inability to communicate effectively. That inner child will come out. And I want you to remember this. And one of my good friends told me this a very long time ago. You do know we can see that inner child, right? Because no matter how much you cloak it, no matter how much you hide it, no matter how much you deny whatever it is you dealt with, and some of us do that, we're in denial in order to get through. We bury those things. But in burying them, the inner child will continue to show up and at times misbehave in the way we interact with other people. Our inner child is real. And so every one of us has an inner child, and getting in touch with your inner child can help foster and grow, you know, um, well well-being and bring light to your life. And some of the things we have to learn to do is to reparent our inner child. Now, this topic may be a little heavy for some and a little light for others. I'm going to remind you again: what doesn't apply, let it fly. I'm sharing experience, strength, and hope tonight. And the hope is this: if you don't get anything else tonight, I want you to remember this: no matter what you went through, you can heal and recover. Will it be painful? Yes. Does it take work? Yes. How do I know? I've experienced it. It's real simple. So, learning to reparent your inner child usually begins with addressing and resolving the issues that your inner child pushes out through you. And sometimes that can happen, in the girlfriend circle. Some of us will need medication to deal with it, and some of us will need therapy, a therapist. But here are three things I want you to know. The first thing that has to happen in dealing with our inner child: you ever pop off sometimes and go, I have no idea where that came from? You ever see somebody who's usually calm and then can go into a rage from 0 to a million in no time? You ever met a narcissist? I have. That inner child needs parenting. The first thing you have to do is acknowledge the child within. As long as it goes unnoticed, you cannot begin the healing process. I'm sharing experience, strength, and hope. Then you start communicating with that inner child and finding a way to hear and feel what your inner child has to tell you. It's in there. It's in there. That inner child is in you. What your inner child has to tell you is key to access the source of your trauma or drama from childhood. Finally, you have to step into the role of nurturing that child. You have to parent that child from your adult self. You have to give your child self exactly what it is it needs to be comforted. And some of us will think that that simply means buying bigger houses, getting bigger bank accounts, being famous on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or social media. None of that's going to comfort your inner child. Dealing with our inner child and the things that hurt us, the childhood hurts that hurt us, are important to our success as people. You ever wonder why you feel depressed sometimes? Examine it. If it's not a chemical imbalance, it's an emotional one, and it typically has to do with your inner child. You ever feel hopeless for no reason, just absolutely hopeless? Deal with that inner child. And in dealing and healing with your inner child, I'm going to give you 8 steps tonight. Then we're going to bring some speakers on next week and let them tell you about some of their trauma, drama, and healing their inner child. The inner child is real. The trauma is real. And some of what we are experiencing all over this country with mass shootings, inner city shootings, is trauma. And until we deal with it, we're not moving. Number one, acknowledge your inner child. Number two, listen to your inner child. Number three, write a letter about your inner child. Because sometimes we're not always prepared to openly deal with people about the things that hurt us. We're not openly prepared to deal with the things that have traumatized us. We're just not openly prepared to do that. Do the best you can and move out and start exactly where you are. If you have no confidence, and most people won't admit this, if your self-esteem and your confidence is low, find out why. Was somebody absent? Was somebody unavailable? Was somebody abusive? Did somebody put you down all the time? Find that inner child. When that inner child is healthy, I don't care who or what you deal with, eventually that inner child will rise and work through you. If you run into a narcissist and you deal with them for a minute and then you move away from them because you were strong enough to eventually move away and stand up for yourself. If you've been in an abusive relationship, and that typically happens with narcissists, you will find the strength to move away if it's inside you. And I want you to know that everything you need to deal with any past trauma or drama is right inside you. When you see people who always have to be grandiose and have the spotlight on them, they got some stuff going on inside they need to deal with. That's real. It's real. When you find people who become Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter famous, and they're not getting the hits they want, you'll see their attitudes change right before your very eyes. They got some stuff they need to deal with. And the other thing is, we can't take other people's drama and trauma personally because it's theirs. They went through it. I went through mine. And I'll share about that in another story when we're with the group that's going to share about childhood drama. You know, things happen. And as kids, it's not our fault. And we have to know that. We have to know that what we went through as children isn't our fault. There were people who had a responsibility to protect us and to deal with us and to help us grow. They didn't always show up and do what they were supposed to do, but you have an opportunity to do what you need to do now to get better, to stop fighting, to stop being controlling, to stop being suspicious of everybody and everything, to stop seeing conspiracies everywhere, to stop battling with folks about, listen, everything doesn't matter. It doesn't. Everything doesn't matter. What we feel and what we have to deal with and what makes us happy, those are the things that matter. And nobody else can make you happy. You can be happier with folks, but nobody can make you happy but you. The happiness is an inside out job. So acknowledge your inner child. Listen to your inner child. Write your inner child a letter. Meditate. Write things down. Sometimes we remember flashes of things, like when we can't sleep and things are troubling us. We have trouble sleeping for years and we don't know why. Look inside. Revisit some of the things that made you happy, and try to experience them. You can't be happy all the time. Life on life's terms is going to present, and things happen in life that we have absolutely no control over. We do have control to how we respond to it. And that's why parenting and dealing with your inner child is important. Drink coconut water, hydrate, mind your business, moisturize your feet, hands, and hair, and be healthy. And in minding your business, what I mean by that is you can't control anybody else but you. Be open to change, be open to transition, and reach out and ask for help. Just reach out and ask for help. Those are the simple things that I wanted to share with you tonight. I hope that you will come back and join us again. If not here live, that you'll look us up, you'll ask questions, and you'll be a part of some of the stuff we're talking about. So if you want to get healed, if you want healthy relationships, that's a biggie. If you want healthy relationships with other people, whether it's your family, your friends, your friend enemies, the people on the job, deal with yourself first. And everybody won't be able to handle you dealing with yourself, but do it anyway. Do it anyway. Deal with yourself anyway. You're worthy. You're important enough to have the experience of healing, just like anybody else. I'm Annette Lartigue. I am your host here at COACHINGU4U. This is a 3-part series. We hope you'll jump in and join us, whether it is here on Apple Podcasts, on any podcast almost station, or here on Facebook or YouTube. We're there. And this is one time we want you to put all our business in the street. So be prepared to get some real good stuff, hear some real good stories, and engage in conversation live or after the podcast regarding your inner child, healing yourself, being prepared to have healthy relationships with your mate, with your husbands. Husbands and wives and people with significant others are out there suffering because they're loving people who are unhealed. And an unhealed person will unheal you if you stay with it long enough. And so thanks for joining us here tonight. Remember, your inner child is your unconscious thoughts and feelings from your childhood, whether it was drama or trauma, no matter how big or how small, because you do know we can see you, right? You show up every time, and sometimes unconsciously by the way you behave. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you again next Wednesday. We want to talk about it. We want to heal, and we want to elevate, and we want to do some of the things that we need to do to get better in relationships. I am grateful. Thank you for joining us here tonight at Coaching You for You. Go see us live, see us after the podcast, but see us because we have something to tell you. Have a good night, and thanks for joining us. I'll see you next week. You're going to hear from some fabulous folks about how they healed the trauma, drama, and inner child in their life. Good night.